thanks for joining us this week. Leading Edge, I'm your host, Jeff Smith. One of Toledo's favorite sons turned 90 this past week. Jamie Farr recently spent some time chatting with us about growing up in Toledo, the lifelong friendships he's made in the industry, and being a part of one of TV's most iconic shows. Now, Jamie's first big break was back in 1955 in the movie Blackboard Jungle. His career would see him in movies and all kinds of TV shows for the next decade. But none would do for him or for Toledo what MASH did. And his role as Corporal Max Klinger, acting crazy and dressing like a woman early on to get a Section 8 release from military duty in the Korean War. Now, here's our conversation, updating us on how he is at 90.
As they say, it's good to be seen and not viewed at 90. So, yeah, doing great. And I'm overwhelmed that everyone's celebrating my birthday, my 90th birthday. Several of our actors in town are older than I am, and they're still treasures. Dick Van Dyke, I think, is about 98, and Peter Marshall's in his 90s. And I think I'm probably the third one there. Yeah, and July the 1st, they used to have a lot of the names in the newspaper. I think Olivia de Havilland and Leslie Caron, and they were July the 1st also. And I used to be down the list. Now I'm on the top of the list. So.
Talk to me a little bit. I prefaced everything by saying, you know, I remember as a child, I'm trying to share it with my children and just say the name Jamie Farr again and again, up and down the TV guide. You saw him listed as on this show, on that show. How were you able to make such a career for yourself out of this small town, USA, all the way there in Hollywood?
Well, as I say, I always say with limited looks and limited talent, I got unlimited success. I'm surprised also for myself. As your child and some of the other children there, they have hopes and dreams in whatever neighborhood, whichever neighborhood they live in. And I never imagined that all of the fantasies that I had in my mind would turn out to be as great as has been. I look at all of the shows and I say, oh my goodness, I remember listening to that on radio, and now I'm working with that person. And that person is now my friend. And we converse with one another on the telephone. We're actually buddies. And I said, how in the world did I possibly get there? I can't tell you. It's just, I think it's just amazing luck.
You were popular in high school, obviously a Woodward polar bear, but you had a great career in high school. You were involved as class president, I believe I read, in drama club and so on and so forth. So obviously you aspired to have that kind of leadership role.
Yes, I did indeed. You know, my father was a grocer and my mom was a seamstress, and usually when you get out of high school and if you go to college or university, they always want you to follow in, you know, your father's business or something. I couldn't do it. I couldn't see myself remaining in Toledo and going into the grocery business or any other kind of business locally. I almost went to the University of Toledo for drama school, and I almost went to Bowling Green State. But then I had seen a ad in the back of a theater arts magazine about the Pasadena Playhouse and how much success people had by going there. And I had just enough money from war stamps and savings bonds because, as you know, I was one of the children that came out of the World War II. And so I said, okay, if they accept me, I will go there. My sister had moved from Toledo to California, so I had somebody in California that I could go to in case I got into any trouble, and they accepted me. And so I said goodbye. A couple of my buddies took me to the train station in downtown Toledo. I went to Chicago, changed trains, and wound up in Pasadena. And I've been there ever since. I've been here ever since 1952.
Jamie, let's jump ahead. Let's talk about MASH. Obviously, a major motion picture with Donald Sutherland, who we just lost.
Who just recently, passed away. I was good friends with Donald. I have a fun story to tell you. But go ahead with your question and then remind me to
well,
tell
no,
you
I don't want to get in the way of a great story. Tell us, obviously, a treasure as far as Hollywood.
When I was at 20th Century Fox and Marvin Davis had owned it, he used to have a big charity in Denver, Colorado called the Juvenile Diabetes Association. And he invited some of the biggest stars, and you would fly on private airplanes there. And so we were there, and you'd be on a dais, actually a banquet table. It'd be a big dinner. And at one end of the table was Cary Grant, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Donald Sutherland. And of course, I think Merv Griffin was one of the MCs of the show. And on my end of it, there was just me, I think, and Chuck Norris and a couple other big famous names. And Arnold and I used to smoke really great cigars. We love cigars. And the one of the people who was the hierarchy at Fox used to get Cuban cigars in. So he saw us at the banquet table, and was just after dinner. And he went over and gave Arnold a cigar. And he gave me a cigar, and Arnold and I went like this. Boy, we got our cigars. We crimped the cigar, and we lighted the cigar, and we're just enjoying it after dinner, listening to a lot of the entertainment there. And all of a sudden, Donald Sutherland comes up to me, and he says, "Jamie, would you mind putting that cigar out, because the smoke is really bothering Cary Grant and me?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to put it out. I mean, I'll just leave it go out, because it's a Cuban cigar." And I said, "Donald, let me ask you something." I said, "You came all the way over here to tell me this. Why didn't you tell Arnold, who's sitting next to you, and Cary Grant?" He said, "If I was going to do that, I'd write him a note and sign it to Phantom."
My goodness.
I was the easier target.
I guess that is the moral of that story, isn't it?
Right.
Well, obviously I was leading in, Jamie, talking about the MASH movie, but then kind of cascading into this unbelievable TV series that swept the nation. You were a part of it. Klinger, I wanted to ask you, could somebody play Klinger today?
Oh, that I couldn't. And I don't even know if somebody could have played Klinger then, to be honest with you. The thing is that to understand how the character came about is that Larry Gelbart, who was our one of our lead writers and co-producers, had read an article about Lenny Bruce, who was in the Coast Guard. And Lenny Bruce, you know, they usually have, when you show up, dress of the day, which either means Class A's or your fatigues. Mm-hmm. And Lenny Bruce, thinking it was a joke, he wound up at Reveille wearing a dress. So unfortunately for him, he wound up in the brig. For me, that's where Larry Gelbart came up with the character. He named me after his childhood friend from Chicago, Klinger, and of course made me Lebanese, because the story goes that when Larry Gelbart was in high school, he had moved from Chicago with his dad to California, and he was attending Fairfax High School in the Los Angeles area. And his father, Harry Gelbart, was the barber to all the comedians in Beverly Hills. He cut Bob Hope's hair, Milton Berle's hair, Jack Benny, George Burns, and Danny Thomas. So when Larry would bring jokes, he'd write them, and he'd say, Dad, can you get somebody to buy some of these? Harry would offer these jokes to the different comedians, and the only one that bought the jokes was Danny Thomas. And that started Larry Gelbart's career for his you know, he did Tootsie, he did A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and so many other great films and plays as well. So as a payback to Danny, he made me, of course, Lebanese, which I was, and also from Toledo, which Danny was, and then also gave me the name of his childhood friend, Klinger.
Coming up here on Leading Edge, Jamie Farr and Divine Intervention? Welcome back here on Leading Edge. I'm Jeff Smith. We're celebrating Toledo's own Jamie Farr, who turned 90 this week. Now, if you didn't already know, Jamie is an amazing storyteller, and we couldn't share all of them, but we chose one that tells how his connection to Danny Thomas and St. Jude just might have changed his career.
You know, in my career, it's I've had Bob Hope used to say, you know, one day you're eating the chicken, the next day you're plucking the feathers. Well, at a particular time in my career, this is my 70th year in it, I plucked the feathers quite a few times before, you know, I really got something good. And there was a movie coming up, The Greatest Story Ever Told. And I said, oh, you know, in my face, there's got to be something in this movie, because I was having a problem at that time. I wasn't getting any jobs. I had run out of unemployment, and I was really desperate. And at the time, I was dating my now wife, Joy, and I used to have a little Renault car, and I'd take her to work. She was working in the downtown Los Angeles area, and there was a little Catholic church. I'm not Catholic, I'm Orthodox, but a little Catholic church nearby. And I said, you know, I would really like to have some kind of a job, and I'm going to go into that church, and if there's St. Jude, I'm going to pray to St. Jude. And so I called my agent in Hollywood, and I said, look, can you get me something in The Greatest Story Ever Told? And he said, Jamie, or at that time I was still under the name of Jamil. He said, you were known for comedy. He said, you know, this is the biblical story of Christ and the apostles and that. And I said, yeah, but with this face, shouldn't I be? He said, well, I'll try. So the next morning, I took my wife-to-be to work, and I said, I'm going to go into that church, and I'm going to pray to St. Jude. And I prayed to St. Jude, and I said, look, listen, I'm from Toledo, Ohio. I'm Lebanese, and Danny Thomas prayed to you, and he was very successful. I said, there's a movie being made now, and I'm desperate. I need a job and that. And so I prayed, and I had like a quarter or something. I'd light a candle and put the quarter in, and then I would then go back, and I kept calling my agent, and he said, look, he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but he said, there really isn't anything in the movie for you. I'm sorry to say. So I said, oh, okay. So I took Joy the next morning to work, and then I went in and I told St. Jude off. I said, you know what? I prayed to you. I've worked so hard in this business and that, and I'm not going to light a candle. I'm just totally finished with you. Okay, that's it. Finished with you. So I walk out, take Joy, and then I pick her up, to go home, and my phone rings at the house. I had a little basement apartment. It was just terrible, just a terrible apartment, and it's my agent, and he says, Jamil, he says, or I guess maybe it was Jamie at that time. I can't remember. It was so far back. He said, I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened, but they called back, and you got a 26-week guarantee at $425 a week to play one of the apostles. And I said, I did. He said, yes. Yeah. He said, you go in tomorrow, get your wardrobe fitting and the makeup, and you're playing the apostle Nathaniel Bartholomew. I said, oh, that's great. That's absolutely, I couldn't believe it. I was calling everybody in the town to tell them that. The next day I went in, and there's Roddy McDowell, and Charlton Heston. They're talking about how they just finished the movie in Italy, and they're all this stuff. So I take they put the beard on, and they put makeup on, and you wear the robes that they had to wear, and they take a screen test. So I come home, and my phone is ringing, and it's my agent again. He says, Jamie, okay, don't get upset now. Don't get upset. They saw the testing that you did with your face and your outfit and everything else. Still the same deal, the same money and 26-week guarantee and that. But you're no longer playing Nathaniel Bartholomew. You're playing an apostle called Thaddeus. I said, Thaddeus. Oh, okay. So I called a friend of mine, a fellow Toledo buddy of mine, who had been in show business and that, and who was very close with Danny Thomas. And I said, hey, Mitch. I'm playing, I got a 26-week guarantee, at $425 a week, and I'm playing the Apostle Thaddeus. He said, who? I said, Thaddeus. He says, do you know who that the apostle's full name is? I said, no. He says, St. Jude Thaddeus. I wound up playing the saint I was praying to.
That is fantastic. My goodness. There must have been something in that read, in that screen test, Jamie, that just screamed St. Jude that day.
I'm so grateful that it was, and of course, I do support the St. Jude Hospital, and and the incredible legacy that Danny Thomas left, and isn't that wonderful? Yeah, another kid from the north end of Toledo went to Woodward High School. You know, he when he left, I think in 1928, and he never graduated, and I happened to be at Woodward High School. I think I was a sophomore or junior there. When he was called back, they wanted to give him his diploma, and I was in the audience, and I saw him get his diploma. Also, my dad had his little corner grocery store at Locust in Ontario, and Danny Thomas's family lived a half a block on Ontario Street. His mom and dad would come in. His mom would always put the cheesecloth over the fruit so the fruit flies wouldn't get.
Danny's listed. You guys are connected whether you realize this or not. Some of the stories that have been written, Danny and you are kind of a mentor-mentee kind of a relationship, but you told me before we got going here, Sid Caesar was probably more impactful.
No, not Sid Caesar. It was Red Skelton.
Red Skelton, I apologize. Red Skelton was probably more impactful.
Sid Caesar writers when I was doing the Danny Kaye show, but Red Skelton was my real mentor. But I have to tell you a wonderful story, because a lot of times I go some places and they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's where Danny Thomas is from, and that's where you're from." I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is the only city. You know, Danny Thomas has a park named after him on the south side of Toledo, and I have a park named after me on the north side of Toledo. The only city in the United States guarded by two noses."
His timing is so good. Coming up next, Klinger becomes a swinger. It'll all make sense. Welcome back to Leading Edge. In our final segment with Jamie Farr, how a guy who talked about his beloved baseball team on MASH would become synonymous with women's golf. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the affinity that you had for women's golf and bringing the LPGA to Toledo and being a part of that tournament.
Hold on here. Look what I am drinking water out of.
Look at that. Now, we didn't plan this, folks. We did not plan this,
but I had my water in it. Well, what happened was, let me tell you, I have to set this down. Forgive me but what happened was that when MASH was going to go off the air, and we kind of canceled ourselves. We figured all the storylines had been done. What we decided to do is take up something that would occupy our time, because you never know when you're going to get a next job again. I could be plucking the chicken feathers again instead of eating the chicken. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna take up that game of golf. I said, I don't want to try it. So I tried it, and I said, boy, I'm terrible at this. I don't think I could ever possibly learn it. So that means I'm going to have to take a lot of practice, and that'll occupy my time in case I'm not working. Anyway, I started to do it, and then Dinah Shore, who I'd done many of her talk shows with, used to have the Dinah Shore Craft Nabisco LPGA in Palm Springs.
Huge tournament.
And she knew that I started taking golf, and that, so she invited me to come to play. And I said, "Oh, sure, I will," not knowing, that I was playing with the greatest players. At any rate, I got to play with Nancy Lopez. That was the first person I got to play. And you got all these big crowds, coming out. And of course, there's television and that. And Nancy's father, Domingo, was standing by the tee there, watching me as I got ready to tee off. And the thing, he says, "Joe, gonna hit it in the water." And I said, "No, I'm not gonna hit it in water. What are you talking about?" He said, "The way you stand, you're gonna hit it in the water." I said, "I'm not gonna hit it in the water." I swung, I hit that ball, that one right, taking off like crazy like that. I hit it in the water. Hit it in the water. The next person was Beth Daniel, I played with also. So I played with some of the greatest players, and they got to know me, and I was invited back numerous times. So when the LPGA tournament was destined for Toledo, the commissioner knew me, obviously, from all of the tournaments I had gone to at the Dinah Shore, and that's how I got involved.
And it's been wonderful ever since. And I know you talked about Beth, you talked about Nancy, and they were mainstays at, and Nancy continues to show up time and time again.
Really? Yeah, Dottie Pepper. Yeah, Dottie, I understand, was in Toledo not too long ago.
Just was, along with Jim Nance. Yeah, she was just here with Jim Nance, a special thing they did leading up to the tournament. They were over at the Peristyle at the museum. Well, Jamie, I'll tell you what, I met you shortly. I used to be at the ABC affiliate here in Toledo, and you were in to do, I believe, Cardi and Company with former Mayor Cardi Finkbeiner on one of your visits.
May I say hello to him, Cardi and Amy? Thank you. It was Cardi with that little park called Riverside Park. I used to go to sit on the swings with Ronald Jacobs, who was Danny Thomas's nephew. He was graduating from Wade High School. I was graduating from Woodward, and we were sitting on some swings the night before we were both leaving for California and wondering what our careers were going to be. He was going to go to UCLA. I was going to the Pasadena Playhouse. And lo and behold, of course, Ronald Jacobs becomes a big executive producer at Danny Thomas Productions with all the TV shows, Dick Van Dyke and Andy Griffith and so forth, all the other shows. And then, of course, I wind up at the Pasadena Playhouse and getting my first movie, Blackboard Jungle, and all the other things that I wound up doing, the Red Skelton shows and all the other things. And actually, I got a spanking with my friends. We used to go to Riverside Park without telling our parents. We'd get on our scooter and tricycle and wagons and go there. And unfortunately, my mother didn't live long enough to know it became Jamie Farr Park. I was going to tell her, you gave me a spanking for going to my own park.
Jamie Farr. We'll be back right after this. You can find past episodes of Leading Edge on the WTOL 11 YouTube page. You can also find the Leading Edge podcast through Apple or Spotify. I'm Jeff Smith. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for spending part of your day with us.